Bronies, grown men who love My Little Ponies.
The show MLP probably had like the most really weird fandom.
And said, hey, have you seen this show? My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. It's so good. And I was like, isn't that like a show for little girls?
I think I asked if they were gay.
Kind of leaning forward into my monitor and I was like, this show's amazing.
Old man pedophile.
Today, I didn't really have anything to look forward to. As soon as ponies came into my life, I was like, wow, I never want the day to end.
It's a little mind-boggling, more flamboyant.
He dresses like a girl.
That's pretty weird.
The show itself is originally for like little girls because it's like the whole entire show is literally about these colorful talking horses and about friendship and magic and like how friendship overcomes everything and whatever.
Creeps.
I've never watched a single episode of My Little Pony.
Obsessed Brony, isolated from the rest of society, he spiraled completely out of control, leading to one of the worst crimes in the history of the state of Indiana.
There are worse hobbies for a young lad to have, like, you know, terrorism. Am I wrong?
Bronies? I don't know. That's on the edge.
Pretty twisted.
This phenomenon of brony conventions clearly was foretold in the book of Revelation. This is it. We are toast. It is over. Please get those pictures off of my show.
Shit, dude.
Hi, you wanna say hi?
Sorry, I had to get my cat in.
Oh, hello, cutie.
This is my introduction of my cat. She's very happy to be here, as you can see.
Yeah? Say hi.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Of all the things I could be doing as a university student, making videos was like not that high, but I like editing, so here I am because I can't find a job in this economy. It's tough out here, guys. Hey, my microphone is charging right now, so I'm gonna be using my phone as a microphone. You know, it's actually not that bad. I've seen people use them for street interviews and it works out. If it works out for them, it might as well work out for me. I hope you guys liked that montage I did, trying out new things, and I thought why not, since montages typically make the video more interesting and give you guys more of like a sneak peek in what we're gonna talk about. And judging by the montage, you already know what this is. This is about the Bronies. I mentioned in my previous video how I will be doing a part 2. I'm keeping my promise, guys. We ain't done. The Bronies is next on our agenda right now. I don't think the Bronies need much introduction since I've talked about them in my previous video, but for those of you who haven't seen part 1, I recommend it so you guys will be like on board in what we're discussing. But a quick little recap: Bronies are basically the adult male fans who are really into MLP, and they had a really weird passion for MLP, I will say. Normally the type of passion you typically see on Super Bowl Sundays and screaming at the TV because they love to say how women are emotional, yet they're over here screaming at the television as if their life depends on it, even though the player is not gonna hear them and doesn't even know they exist. So yeah, that's the Bronies. They say real men don't cry, unless it's season 3 finale when Twilight gets her wings, but even that finale actually pissed off a lot of Bronies because they apparently didn't like the idea of Twilight Sparkle getting her wings. We're going to talk about the whole aspect of Bronies getting mad for literally no fucking reason within the fandom, because there are actually a lot of stories that I managed to find as I was doing research where Bronies just got mad over literally anything that the showrunners, you know, did. And with Twilight in particular, it was pretty interesting. They even got mad that Twilight was being given a love interest. Well, it was more like a hinted love interest in a way. And Bronies did not like that too. And we're going to talk about it. But first, we need to talk about the very beginning. And I would like to start off with the documentary that I mentioned in the first video, by the way. But this time I'll be talking about it entirely. Now, without further ado, let's start. Alright, so the documentary that was made in 2012 is titled The Unexpected Adult Fandom of MLP. You can still watch it on YouTube, by the way. It's on there. And when I was filming part 1, I actually did take the time to watch the entire documentary. It's like an hour long. It's not as long, but you can still take the time to watch it, which I did. and it basically just focused on the bronies. It ranged from like various dudes doing interviews, it ranged from like teenagers to adults to the literal military even. Yeah guys, I wish I was joking, but the documentary also featured literal men in camouflage, boot wearing, gun carrying, manly men with a Rainbow Dash plushie apparently. Dude, like seeing this now, especially with like the culture wars that we have these days, where these dumb fuck conservatives will just like go on things like Fox News and over here scream about, we need to bring back manly men. Men don't want to fight our wars no more.
What happened to manly men? Back in my day, men used to go and fight.
Meanwhile, this is the manly man in question, by the way. Did they know about that? Just saying, did they know that these soldiers that they idolized were probably carrying Rainbow Dash body pillows and debating Twilight Sparkle's character arc in Discord threads? I'm just saying, Twilight's ascension to alicorn status was the most tactical sound character evolution I've ever seen. Like, you feel me, bro?
She literally optimized friendship like a battlefield commander. That girl went from bookworm to battle mage.
No cap, I use her leadership strategies in my squad briefings. Organize, empathize, vaporize, baby. But dog, remember when she created a checklist for her checklist? That's peak operational efficiency right here, you feel me? Don't let the conservatives discover this documentary, by the way. Do not let the conservatives discover about this, because I think they're gonna have a full-on aneurysm when they discover that they're boys who are supposed to be fighting on the front lines over here having a operational Fluttershy fan club. Okay, do not, I swear. Well, actually, maybe we should, because it would be so funny seeing people like fucking Ben Shapiro be like, oh my god,
Hypothetically, this is not right. Hypothetically.
bro is speaking in 2-speed, bro. Like, calm the fuck down, dude.
Radical gay propaganda video directed at children.
I know that this is supposed to be a brony video, and of course this will be about the bronies. I just had to throw in some politically charged comments here and there, because the nature of this documentary is also kind of political, because some of the bronies do come from a certain area in the United States that unfortunately has these conservatives that I mentioned, so I wanted to kind of throw this in here, by the way. So as I was watching the documentary, I personally found it quite interesting. I liked the way it was made, particularly like this type of thing where the documentary zooms in on these countries, Equestria style, where the bronies are from, and then they like showcase like the touristic destinations of these countries, kind of like promoting it in a way, and I like the way the documentary did that. I think it's pretty cool. It's a nice touch. Ah yes, the magical land of Britain. Home to a variety of foods that they have taken from many countries that they have conquered, yet they still don't have no idea what seasoning is. The English disease known as football hooliganism that has blessed many European countries throughout the decades. The lovely behavior of many British tourists who go to these countries and think that they own everything because it's just the mentality of conquering many different countries. And the dental plan that has yet to make a return since the 1950s. Okay, I'm sorry. I just checked on my statistics on my YouTube, by the way. Many of my viewers who watch me in general are from the UK, so no hate to you guys. I just thought this would be a funny joke. Some people, primarily other fans of MLP, said that it was like boring or like bad, but I don't know, I kind of liked it, to be honest. Or I guess that's just me personally. There's also guest stars in this documentary, such as Tara Strachan. She is the voice of Twilight Sparkle. I'm pretty sure you guys have probably heard of Tara Strachan. She has been a quite successful voice actress in children's media in general. Lauren Faust, of course, was also in this documentary, and the voice of Discord, whose name is John Lacie. If you guys are Star Trek fans, you might probably recognize him as Q. So yeah, so there was only like 2 voice actors in this. The others, unfortunately, were not in the documentary at all. My favorite Tara Strong moment in this documentary is when she went to visit this little boy, who too is a brony, except he has I think it's like a learning or some kind of disability, I don't know. So I went back and to the documentary because I was getting various clips for the video, and apparently it turns out that boy was not diagnosed with a learning disability. He was actually diagnosed with a brain tumor. So so sorry. I guess I forgot when I was like watching the documentary, so I just went back and checked, and just telling you now like the edited version. So but either way, he is, disabled. And as a huge fan of MLP, he also managed to connect with other bronies across the world, and I'm not gonna lie, this moment was actually quite wholesome, not like just saying. The bronies from all over the world were sending him like fan mail and letters, you know, saying how he's strong, he's gonna get through this. That part in the documentary actually made me kind of like, you know, okay, I didn't like cry, but it made me quite emotional. And Terrorstron literally went to this boy's house in this documentary to visit him and to basically kind of like, you know, give him some words of encouragement. And I don't know, dude. I don't know what you guys think about this, but me personally, I think it was also cute, wholesome, and I personally do like Tara Strong. I think she's like a really good voice actress. Like, her talent is insane, and this just kind of made me like her even more when she came to visit this little boy. And the documentary does kind of show that, you know, not every single brony is like weird or creepy, because in the montage, like, you kind of seen some people say that, you know, they are creepy. Which, again, we're gonna get into. Most of the bronies were fucking weird, just saying, but I did like that the documentary at least tried to highlight the good sides of the bronies and not kind of paint them all as, like, bad or fucking weird, because the kid was receiving a lot of this mail from mostly bronies, just saying. So that's one of the wholesome moments I wanted to include in this video. The documentary mainly just focuses on different types of bronies who all come from like different countries, different backgrounds. The documentary showcases a wide range of bronies from all over the world, basically, and they all explain their story as to how they, you know, discovered MLP, what made them fall in love with it, and they also kind of talk about the issues they faced regarding their love for MLP. Primarily the ones who were from the United States. They came from this region of the United States called the Appalachian region, which is named after the Appalachian Mountains, if I'm correct. Again, I'm not too sure. And they kind of explained while they lived in this particular area where many rednecks live. So I'm assuming this Appalachian area is like culturally tied to the Deep South. I don't know, but they basically explained how when they revealed that they love MLP, they received a fair bit of harassment from these rednecks. You know, they were bullying them, and I guess I would say they also had a not so subtle homophobia, because they were calling them, like, you know, gays, fairies, all the stuff that you particularly would hear from these homophobic rednecks.
A lot of weird looks from the rednecks, because, you know, they're expecting me to be driving a big truck, or I'm supposed to be competing with them somehow, and I don't see the fun in that.
And because as a brony, I just really felt isolated, you know, like I was the only one in the military, and that it was so hard to be so excited about something that I love so much and not be able to tell anyone. I'm going to a Brony Con, you know, I wanted to tell everyone, I wanted to tell my friends and my family, but my friends are all in the military, and it's like, oh, well, I can't tell them because, you know, because
why?
Because of the way that the military in general, you know, would react. It's like, oh, you like a little girl show, oh, well, you know, you must be, you know, feminine or gay or whatever. And it's like, you know, I want to just sit down and say, no, you know, watch the show, watch the animation.
I have a strong stereotyping that if you aren't extremely masculine and chauvinistic, then you're homosexual, and in this area, homosexuality is also looked down upon, so.
Beat up, you could get cussed at, you could get things thrown at you. It's not an easy thing.
Rednecks standing around my car. There was a truck in front of my car, behind it, so I couldn't move. And they had tire irons, baseball bats. I had just got custom decals for my windows. On my back window, I had a large Celestia and a large Luna, and they were kneeling up together, forming an archway, and it was just the coolest thing. And they went right to my back window, hit it a few times, and you know, smashed it.
This guy, he ran to his truck and came back out with his rifle he had been hunting with. I got pretty scared at that point, and you know, he was playfully aiming it at me like, you know, you gotta stop this pony, you little gay girly shit, you know, and that's what he pointed it right at me, and I freaked out. You know, I slammed the car in reverse, and you know, just managed to get the whole side of this car just bashed up.
And so I told her it was a joke. I was very nervous about my dad finding out. He might be thinking that I'm gay or a man-child or something.
I like that the documentary did highlight these, I guess you could say, like, gendered issues regarding what men should like, what men shouldn't like, and we're gonna get to the whole aspect of Brony Con in a second, which was created to kind of also highlight this type of issue. And since we're on the whole aspect of homophobia and these rednecks, you know, implementing their very big hatred for gay people and anyone that is queer, I'm just gonna say it, even if some of these guys were gay, even if they like displayed some sort of affection to the same gender, there is nothing wrong with it in and of itself. They're not doing anything, they're not harming anyone, and I do feel empathy for these dudes who simply just wanted to watch MLP. Like, I get that it's a show for little girls, and I get that, you know, some of the guys within the fandom were fucking weird, but most of the guys in this documentary were genuinely like not doing anything wrong, nor were they hurting anyone. In fact, like, they've showed a wide range of dudes, ranging from like people who come from the deep south, from the Appalachian regions, to some who are, you know, who are diagnosed with various disorders or disabilities, and they highlight all of their stories. So the documentary is inclusive with this sort of thing, and it's one of the reasons why I personally liked it and wanted to talk about it, because I did technically want to highlight the more good side of the bronies, because there are good bronies. They're not all bronies are bad. I know that this video is me criticizing the bronies, and we're gonna do that, don't worry, but I do in a way want to highlight the more good sides of the fandom. And when the bronies were like gaining traction throughout like basically all sorts of media, various news reporters and like journalists reported on the phenomenon of bronies and, you know, commented on how it is weird, which I do agree, it is weird. It is, you know, odd to see old grown men, you know, like MLP, but the way these journalists just attack these men for no reason, calling them all sorts of names, and even like comparing liking MLP to terrorism.
Worst hobbies for a young lad to have, like, you know, terrorism. Am I wrong?
Bronies? Yeah. I don't know, that's on the edge.
Like, where's the correlation, my dude? Like, that's not the same thing. Like, how did you come to this conclusion, basically? So another reason why I wanted to talk about this documentary is because the whole media was also in a frenzy and had this whole ass hysteria about these guys who just wanted to vibe and watch MLP. Like, again, don't get me wrong, we're gonna criticize the bronies, but I feel like the media also went too harsh on these guys for like no reason. And mind you, most of the people who were harassing these guys were also grown reporters, you know, they were also grown men. I mean, women too, but grown men also were harassing them, so it's like, you know, you're no better than the weirdos who liked MLP, who were also like, you know, harassing women in the MLP fandom. Because yes, women in the MLP fandom were basically harassed by grown men who were bronies, but like the reporters who are doing the same thing, like, how does that make you guys any better just because the men just happen to like something that's not traditionally manly? Like like it kind of does highlight the whole issue, like, you know, when it comes to man, like, by your definition, what is a man then? What is masculine to you if they happen to like something that's not traditionally masculine, you know? So it's another thing that I wanted to point out. Another cute moment from the documentary was this couple from Germany who actually began dating because of their love of MLP. Like, they both had the same interest in My Little Pony, and there's also like, you know, various clips of them in this documentary just basically having a cute moment together, being cute boyfriend and girlfriend and watching MLP.
Said I'm complete.
My Little Pony.
To know you are my very best friend.
This documentary called me single in so many languages. Good fucking god. But I think like the best moment from this documentary were these two teenage boys. I already forgot their names. Good fucking god. But these two teenage boys who both liked MLP, who both were like fans of it, but their fathers were kind of like against it because they found it weird that a teenage boy is into a show that is primarily for little girls. So they also plan to go to Brony Con, and they too met at Brony Con. And you know who else they met? John Lacie. And John Lacie was basically getting a shit ton of emails from all of these bronies, by the way. Like, he was receiving a whole ton of them. Like, I'm not joking. He literally was like so shocked to find out that men love this show, by the way. So when he was at Brony Con, he met these two boys, and he even met their fathers because they came with their fathers together. And the two fathers of those boys also met and kind of started to like discuss their son's interest in MLP. And John Lacie was basically trying to explain to the fathers is that like, it's completely okay if your boys liked MLP. Yeah, it's a girly show, but it doesn't really change anything. They're still your sons. They're still boys. They just happen to like a girly show. I think I just liked John Lacie even more in this documentary because he was honestly like so supportive of all of these bronies, despite the fact that I don't know if he knows about the true nature of the bronies in general, but I wanted to also talk about this as well because John DeLacie kind of also was like against this whole like, you know, stigmatization of guys liking MLP because he never really understood why, like, if you're not hurting anybody, what's the point? I mean, I agree. The whole intention of this documentary was to highlight the popularity of bronies, but more so the stigmatization that they faced in their communities, primarily from either their parents or just anyone in general that found this shit weird, I guess. By the way, I think I mispronounced John's name. It's not DeLacie, it's Lancie with the N. I'm sorry, please don't bully me in the comments. I don't know why I said DeLacie. My dumbass brain just assumed it's DeLacie, so just wanting to clarify that. To summarize, the documentary was fine. I'm not gonna say it was well made because that's a bit of a stretch there, but I personally enjoyed it. If you guys didn't, that's absolutely fine. Your opinion. My personal opinion is just I personally liked it. I think it was well made, and I like that they highlighted various important issues. However, we are going to move on to the next point now, which is about Brony Con, which the documentary introduced and talked about. And I mentioned Brony Con in part 1 a bit, but we're going to do more of a deeper dive in this part. Well, not a deeper dive, but I'll just explain the origins of it, what went down there, and then we're going to briefly move on to the to why I had issues with the bronies. The origins of Brony Con are mentioned in this documentary, and they introduce a person named Jessica Blank, who goes by Purple Tinker. They are the creator of Brony Con, and in their perspective, Brony Con, they viewed bronies as a men's form of feminism, basically, because they too believe that, you know, challenging gender norms like the show did was also important. So they created Brony Con as a way to create this like safe space for everybody. That includes bronies, that includes children, little girls. And this brony convention became like more of a unifying convention, I should say. So the whole idea for Purple Tinker was to basically create an inclusive space where everybody can be themselves, where anybody can be whoever, basically. Like, you know, tying to the show's message about friendship, inclusivity, how it's wrong to exclude those who are different from you, basically all of that. So that was the message and the initial idea that that they had for Brony Con. Brony Con was originally a get-together that was held in New York's Little Italy, but with its inaugural success, it gained a sharp interest. Then the first ever Brony Con was held in Manhattan, and then around through 2013, it was moved to Baltimore, Maryland, where it remained until its final meetup in 2019. Brony Con was made up of various panels where fans can present their art, music, fan production, literally whatever, and it also included various activity rooms for people who wanted to engage in that sort of things. And Brony Con also gained the nickname Brony Palooza, which is a tie-in to Lollapalooza, by the way, because in Brony Con there was various concerts that were held where fan musicians can just, like, you know, perform whatever pieces they've created. The overall convention was family friendly, and from the outside it does seem like, you know, something that little kids could go to, which yes, it is for kids. There was a lot of children that attended Brony Con, but of course it was also made up of bronies, who were guys, and there was also grown men entering Brony Con. And while Brony Con was initially supposed to be family friendly, unfortunately, there are stories and there are cases where it was not the case, because like I said, it wasn't all friendship and magic. We're now entering the part what I like to call bronies terrorizing the fandom, because their behavior was unhinged during the early days and then all the way throughout the show's runtime. As bronies became household names within the MLP fandom, the showrunners started to be aware of their existence and also wanted to include them in anything MLP related, which is fine again, but of course all of this does raise questions about the true nature and the behavior of the bronies. Because if you really look at it, many bronies didn't respect the fact that MLP was intended for kids still, while the showrunners wanted to include everybody because they were presenting the message of MLP in real life to include everyone, regardless, you know, however, like regardless of your age or what your gender is, you are included in the MLP fandom because the MLP's message is about friendship and inclusivity. And while I can see the good intention of the showrunners, the bronies unfortunately exploited that for their own gain. They saw how the showrunners were mostly catering to MLP fans, because that's actually another common thing within the MLP fandom and during the show's runtime, is that the showrunners tended to cater to MLP fans to kind of like provide fan service, I should say, basically, because MLP did have some type of fan service that was catering to MLP fans, but it wasn't anything bad. However, when the Bronies entered the fandom, it started to be noticeable, and the showrunners, unfortunately, you know, wanted to keep the audience engaged. And since Bronies were making up a large portion of, you know, the audience of MLP, it unfortunately got to the point where the showrunners were mostly prioritizing the Bronies and rather than like the intended audience and like the show in general. A good example of this whole Brony catering type of thing that was happening was how not safe for work merchandise was being allowed into Brony Con. Yes, not safe for work merchandise. To a convention, you would think that was family friendly, but apparently Bronies were allowed to bring this sort of stuff in, and no organizers or like people who were in charge of this were saying anything about it. And I mostly found this out from Reddit when I was doing some research on like stories or whatever, and some users who were like there during the early days basically explained that yeah, Bronies were allowed to bring in like literal sexualized drawings and fan arts of MLP characters, and the staff did nothing about it. And mind you, children were still present at Brony Con. That is exactly it. Yeah, yes, guys, children were there, and this type of thing was being allowed apparently because the staff just really wanted to keep this audience in. And it also comes to this whole like question, like, was it all worth it? Like, was it worth it to do all of this just so you can keep your audience? Because mind you, this stuff should not be in it. My Little Pony is a show for little girls. It's about horses learning about friendship. It should not be treated like this, but Bronies were literally sexualizing the show as well. I do not believe that Purple Tinker had bad intentions when they were creating BronyCon. I truly saw some good intentions when creating this convention because they truly did want this to be like unifying and inclusive for everyone. But it really does make us all question, like, why are we allowing this? Like, was this truly worth it? Because while yes, there were attendees at BronyCon who were teenage boys who just wanted to watch MLP, but there were also grown men well into their 30s and 40s over here wanting to live out their incel fantasies and traumatize literal children with some of the material they were bringing in. And also, some Bronies had weird obsessions with MLP characters, primarily Twilight Sparkle. Which, oh god, this brings us to the next point. Is Twilight Sparkle being the biggest victim of the, like, you know, of these Bronies? Because yes, my girl did not deserve to get treated like this by these grown-ass weirdos who literally were the biggest simps for Twilight. Twilight Sparkle is arguably the most relatable character in MLP. Well, I mean, to me personally, she's quite relatable because her initial struggles with social interaction and her just being a nerd and wanting to keep to herself resonated with a lot of fans, including me. Like, I can very much relate to Twilight's whole social awkwardness. But apparently so did the Bronies. With the Brony stigmatization that they faced when they, I guess you could say, like, revealed themselves to be Bronies, they kind of resonated with Twilight's whole, like, social awkwardness, and Twilight was a really smart leader for the main six. You know, she presented herself as, like, you know, this pony that wanted to include everybody. She wanted to teach everyone about friendship. And with her whole character growth, with her going from a unicorn to a princess, and then later getting her castle and getting the title Princess of Friendship, all of this really made Bronies obsess over her, which is weird because when Twilight actually did get her wings in the season 3 finale, I did mention this, how Bronies were like not happy with her character arc in this, but then apparently they kind of got over it. I couldn't find much info on that, by the way, but some Bronies did not like the fact that Twilight got her wings. However, there were Bronies who did, and their obsession kind of began to really show when Twilight was really entering, you know, all of these character growths, you could say. This whole obsession with Twilight, of course, existed way before, and the earliest mention I could find of Bronies obsessing with Twilight is one guy who I wish I was joking, married a Twilight plushie. Why do I do this to myself, you may ask? And the answer is, I don't know, because I find weird shit on the internet, and this is one of them. I found some information online from this guy. His nickname is Jin1515, which is also his username. He comes from DeviantArt, which explains everything. And some of the information that I managed to find was through Tumblr and Reddit? Does this count? There are also YouTube videos that I didn't really watch, but to be honest, I don't think I need to watch videos to understand who this guy is because his DeviantArt page explains everything. The dude comes from Minnesota, and when he married Twilight Sparkle, he claims that the spirit of Twilight lives in the plushie's body, talks to him, plays video games with him, and even fulfills his bedroom needs. Oh my god. The shit that I do for videos. the shit that I do, and you can tell by the BDSM-esque pictures that he have taken of Twilight Sparkle. Dude, you could just like go on his like DeviantArt and you could just like see all the pictures he's taken of Twilight. Like, oh my god. Yeah, that's very normal. Yeah. What is this? Oh, yeah, I need to log in. Never mind. Oh god, he even has body pillows? Oh, ew! Of course, when he's not doing that, he was also writing journal entries about his and Twilight's time together. I found one on Reddit, so let's read it together, shall we? I'm gonna regret this so bad, my god. Today, Twilight and I did the most spontaneous thing either of us have ever done in our entire lives. We got married! We never would have imagined waking up this morning that we'd be husband and wife by the end of the day. We were planning the whole ceremony for next summer, but life works in unexpected ways, and sometimes an opportunity comes along and you just have to go for it. We were sitting around in Skype chatting with the minister who we were planning to have perform our wedding ceremony next summer, Sorry, I can't like see this. Bemoaning the financial issues we were struggling with surrounding the guests and catering, renting a tuxedo, Twi's wedding gown was already taken care of. The rings and everything else that goes into planning a wedding, we weren't sure how we could even possibly pull it off on my college student budget. And then, Twi once again, as she had done several times before, reminded me that she didn't care about having a fancy dress or a big event with lots of fanfare. The only thing that was really important to her was that we'd always be together, and making that commitment to each other was all that really mattered. At that point, the minister brought up that if we wanted, he could actually perform the ceremony over webcam rather than having to travel from his home country of Sweden to America to do it. The doctrines of the Universal Life Church do allow him to do that. Then before I even had a chance to think about the matter, Dwight blurted out, "Then let's do it!" I just grinned at her and said, "You really want to?" To which Twilight replied, "Of course, it's much more financially efficient than having an extravagant wedding ceremony, and I already told you I don't care about all the trappings. My family in Equestria isn't going to be able to attend anyway. All that really matters is that we love each other and know we want to spend the rest of our lives together." I didn't even have to think over. She was right. Okay, oh my god, dude. This is basically fanfiction at this point. Like, this guy just writes fanfiction about himself in Twilight. You can't fucking convince me otherwise. Dude, I can't even imagine having a conversation with a minister about wanting to marry a literal plush toy. Like, how would that conversation even go? Wait, so let me get this straight. You want me to marry you and a plushie of a purple horse? Yeah, that's right. But she's a toy, just letting you know, like, I hope you're aware of that. Okay, so? Well, I'm just saying, because normally little girls play with these plushy toys, not men well over into their 30s, who probably should already be married to a human, you know? Oh, okay, I get it. So you don't want me to be happy, is that it? That's not what I'm saying. I'm just trying to give you some advice here that maybe you should reconsider your choices in life in general. No, because I finally found something that makes me happy, and when I want to do this, you don't want to do it. It's almost as if you don't care about our happiness. You don't care about the bronies. You don't care about what we want, because you rather judge us. Is that it? Well, I will say it is strange seeing 30, 40-year-old men being obsessed with these ponies that are clearly meant for little girls. Not for your age demographic, but, you know, I mean, that's just me. Oh, see? So you do want to judge us. You do, see? I knew it. You guys are all the same. You don't want us to be happy. You don't want me to live a happy life. You don't want me to be with my love right here. I should have known. I should have fucking known. Okay, fine. I'll marry you. Is that what you want? Will that make you happy? Will that make you fucking shut up? Oh my god, you will? You see, my love? You see, he's gonna do it. I told you they would understand. Our love is inseparable. He'll never separate us. Never. I should have just became a plumber. Along with this scenario, there was also another case that involved the Bronies and them showing their true obsession with Twilight, is when Twilight was being hinted at having a potential love interest, which I mentioned at the beginning how there was a character that Twilight had a crush on. So this came from the Equestria Girls film that came out back in 2013. I talked about it in part 1, by the way. So Twilight had a crush on this character named Flash Sentry. He was like the captain of the Royal Guards in the show. And when she went into the Equestria Girls world, she actually fell in love with the human Flash Sentry because, again, she liked both characters, both in pony form and human form. And Hasbro kind of saw that, you know, hey, there was other main 6 characters that either had crushes or had like a love interest, because some of them did like show signs of like having crushes, but Twilight was the only one that didn't really have a crush on anyone, and they were like, okay, let's just give her a love interest because it seems to work. Well, that's what I thought it was gonna happen. I genuinely thought me and anybody that was genuinely a fan were actually rooting for Twilight to have a love interest, but apparently Bronies did not like that. In fact, they were so against Twilight having a love interest that I believe some of them even wrote threatening letters to Hasbro telling them, or not telling them, demanding them to scrap the whole idea of Twilight having a love interest. And the writers for Hasbro unfortunately caved in and decided to, you know, let go of that whole scenario because they didn't want to, you know, upset the Bronies, because the Bronies had become such a huge demographic at this point that they were willing to more so cater to the Bronies, like I mentioned before, how they were trying to cater to them and wanting to keep their audience. So they were so hell-bent on catering to that, they completely decided to listen to them entirely. And when I found out about this, I was like, why though? Like why? Like, it was such a cool idea for Twilight to have a love interest, and I would love to see how this would go, because Flash Sentry and Twilight was actually a really popular ship from the fandom. Despite the love interest being scrapped, they still continued to ship them together, by the way, and I was like so angry. The Bronies literally were like, I'm not trying to say that the Bronies were like ruining everything, but it really did show that they were so hell-bent on continuing to keep these incel fantasies and just doing whatever, basically. Like, I will say that they were acting quite authoritarian with these writers, and I was just like, why were the writers just caving in? Just do it, you know? You still had a fan base of little girls, which was the show originally for, by the way. All of these cases and all of these examples really do showcase how the Bronies were not all fun and games and rainbows and friendship and magic. They were really not for this at all. The reason why there are so many Bronies within the fandom is because some of them were genuinely drawn to these pony characters. And I don't know why, because some of these grown men were, I guess, really that depressed in their mom's basement that they really wanted to, you know, be so close to these characters. And it's kind of, I would say it's more of a disturbing thing, I could say, because again, not every Brony was like this, not every Brony was subscribing to these like extreme, insane ideas, but some of them, you know, were really hell-bent on ruining fandoms, and the writers of the show never really cared to control or stop them from doing this, because, you know, if the writers really wanted the show to work, maybe they should have set some boundaries. Like, I understand they wanted to keep their audience, and I understand that they wanted to, I guess, you know, keep the viewership going, because MLP in general is a good show. It was bringing in a lot of money, shit ton of merchandise was being sold, but there are still limits to how you behave. The show was still, at the end of the day, originally for little girls. They should have still stayed to that. Even when Lauren Faust left, like, long ago, they kind of, like, really continued to cater to the Bronies, because Lauren Faust herself wasn't really that into catering to Bronies. Like, she recognized them as part of the fandom, and she was fine with them, but she never really, like, she wouldn't have done something like this, you know? And it's also even more sad when you find out that not just Lauren Faust, who was a woman creator of MLP, the original creator of the whole MLP in general was also a woman. In part 1, I mentioned how there was a lady named Bonnie something, I don't know how you pronounce her name, but she was kind of the pioneer for MLP, and she was also a woman. So MLP as a franchise, as a toy line, was created by women, because they were originally for little girls, and I feel like the writers kind of just forgot the entire roots of MLP as a toy line. And that's another depressing factor, really, is that they've kind of just catered to these Bronies who are mostly men and given them these like weird ass fantasies and just listening to what they said rather than just sticking to the actual formula that was a girly TV show. Okay, we are almost done. We just need to talk about one more incident that happened that included a brony doing this, and that's it. And this is a case that actually is quite graphic, so if you guys are triggered by, you know, violence or any of that sort of thing, I highly recommend you to skip or just not watch this part if you are triggered by that sort of thing. But this is a case that involves a shooting that occurred at the Indianapolis FedEx company, and the guy who perpetrated the shooting was a brony. His name was Brandon Scott Hull. Yes, Hull, that is his last name, and he was a self-proclaimed brony, except he wasn't a Twilight Sparkle sim. He was actually a sim for Applejack, and he was like pretty isolated throughout his life. I found out about this case through a YouTuber named Dire Trip. I highly recommend watching Dire Trip if you guys want to know more about this whole case, because he actually does a pretty good job covering it. I'm not gonna do a fantastic job. I literally just found the case on Wikipedia, so I'm just gonna read off of it and just explain my thoughts about it. Okay, so I'm on Wikipedia right now, and I'm just gonna read some information about this guy. So he worked at the FedEx facility from August to October 2020 before being terminated for absenteeism, because I guess he didn't show up for work a lot and he was fired because he was just being a lazy bum. Following the shooting, authorities conducted a search of his home, seized evidence including electronics. And the whole reason as to even why he committed the shooting, I didn't mention this, but I'll just mention it now, is that this guy was so fascinated with Applejack that he wanted to commit this shooting and then kill himself because he wanted to be with her in the afterlife. So he basically was a delusional brony, I would say. This is the more extreme case of bronies, I would add, because this is the only case I can really find of a brony committing mass murder, because I haven't heard of anything else apart from this case. So it turns out that this kid, he has been diagnosed with several behavioral disorders starting in 4th grade and had undergone behavioral therapy sessions for them. He was diagnosed with a disruptive behavior disorder and anxiety disorder at the ages of 10, and then later diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder in 2015. So he would have been around like 13, I believe. His behavior in childhood deteriorated to a point where the police had to be called to the home on at least 2 occasions and where he could not attend school and graduate. In 2013, at the age of 11, Hull was arrested for attacking his mother and slightly injuring her, for which he was sentenced to probation and counseling. In March 2020, Hull's mother contacted the local authorities and warned them about her son's intent to die by suicide by cop, and his purchase of a .410 Mossberg 500 pump action shotgun. Jesus Christ. I don't know shit about guns, by the way, so I'm gonna be confused with most of this. Police then responded to the home and took him to a hospital. While being placed in handcuffs, Hull told the officers to turn off his computer since he did not want anyone to see what was on it. An officer went upstairs to seize the shotgun and observed that he identified as a white supremacist. Okay, that's too much for me. Hull was placed in an immediate detention mental health temporary hold by the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department, but he was released after less than 2 hours. In April 2020, the FBI questioned Hull about the websites. The investigation was later closed due to insufficient evidence of any criminal violation or a racially motivated extremist ideology held by Hull, though the shotgun was not returned to him. According to the police, Hull used 2 AR-style 15 rifles, Jesus Christ, dude, in the shooting, and both of them were legally purchased from a licensed gun store in July and September. Under Indiana's red flag law, in the United States, a red flag law is a gun law that permits a state court to order the temporary seizure of firearms from a person who they believe may present danger. Oh, okay. Hull could have been prevented from making firearm purchases for at least 6 months, and then after his temporary mental health detainment, if a hearing had been scheduled with a judge 14 days after the seizure of his shotgun. However, Marion County prosecutors decided not to schedule a hearing, believing authorities had already achieved the law's objective since Hull's family did not want the seized shotgun back. Blah blah blah, yada yada. So anyway, you get the point. So this is just mostly about him. The events. Let's read about the events. So he drove to a facility, arriving during a shift change. He first went into the building and spoke with security. Then he returned to his vehicle. According to the Indianapolis police, Hull began firing at the employees in the parking lot with a rifle shortly after exiting his vehicle again. I'm so sorry. I'm just reading so fast. Exiting his vehicle again, he then proceeded to the facility's entrance, where he resumed shooting. Hall tried to progress further into the building, but was blocked by a full-height turnstile. Oh, okay. He fired shots at the employees at the other side of the turnstile before exiting the building. Hall started firing at the employees in the parking lot again. An employee fired at Hall with his own handgun, but missed. Hall eventually walked back to the building to commit suicide. And that's basically it. So his motives were mainly perceived by the thrill of it and him just wanting to be in the afterlife with Applejack. And this case is actually not an isolated one. People within the MLP community have actually heard about this. And when I was on Reddit, people did talk about the shooting, and I was assuming that they've talked about this particular case because this is like the only case that I can find where a Brony committed mass murder. So his motive was also masculinity, perceived demonstration of masculinity. Well, I mean, you are a Brony, so okay. So that's really all I can talk about this, really. Other than that, it's just wild and insane. And of course, this is not me going to be generalizing the Bronies. This is literally an only case I could find. I'm just trying to, I guess, tell you guys about this, how some Bronies go too far when their obsession with MLP becomes insane, because he was infatuated with Applejack, and he believed that doing this would get him, to meet her in the afterlife. Some Bronies were legit delusional, and that's another reason why I wanted to talk about this, is because while this happened in 2021, like, after the entire MLP show ended, I still would like to know if the writers or any of them, like, knew about this case, because, it's pretty wild. Well, that is all I have for today, guys. Moral of the story is, don't be like the Bronies. Do not end up like that. I hope to God that none of you will follow in the footsteps of the Bronies, because I don't want to have to make another video about this, because I think I already had to suffer enough when I was doing research about all this, but I'm now done with this. I did say that this video is not going to be as long, and I'm glad that it didn't end up being as long as part 1. I did not want part 1 to be an hour long, by the way. I did not expect it to be long, but it just ended up being an hour long because I had a lot to say about the fandom. And so yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, give it a like, click subscribe. I'm still really new at this. I'm still trying to be comfortable on camera and still trying to figure out what I want to say at the end. I need to focus more on my outros, to be honest. I feel like that's where I should place my focus here, but thank you so much for watching. I'm out.